Why trust is a lie. Why you can't trust good people. And Kafka proved it. Gregor Samsa didn't die because he turned into a bug. He didn't die from fear or hunger or even shame. He died because the one person he trusted the most, his sister, looked at him one day and said, "That thing is not Gregor. We have to get rid of it." This isn't a horror story about insects. It's about something far worse. It's about what happens when good people, the kind, soft-spoken, caring ones, stop seeing you as human. In this video, we'll dissect how betrayal works when it's wrapped in good intentions. We'll break down why kindness often has an expiration date, how society weaponizes morality, and why the people who love you can still destroy you without ever thinking they've done anything wrong. If you've ever been abandoned, misunderstood, or quietly erased by someone who claimed to care, this story will hurt, but it might also explain everything. At first, Greta tried. While their father hurled Gregor back into his room with a cane, while their mother collapsed in sobs every time she caught a glimpse of him, Greta brought food. She placed it down gently. She opened the window. She spoke softly through the door. She didn't scream. She didn't run. And for a while, Gregor believed she would save him. That belief was his final mistake. Because love, real love, isn't proven by how someone treats you when it's easy. It's proven by what they do when you become inconvenient. And eventually, Greta got tired of the smell, of the silence, of the shame. One day, she stopped bringing his favorite food. Then she stopped cleaning the room. Then she stopped calling him Gregor. And finally, she said it, without flinching. "We must get rid of it. If that were really Gregor, he would have realized we can't live like this." She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She just erased him, like a stain. This is what makes Greta's betrayal worse than violence. It was calm, it was rational, it was socially acceptable. She didn't need to raise her voice, she just needed to stop seeing him as a person. And once she did that, everything else became easy. Gregor hadn't changed inside, his thoughts were still his memories were intact. He still loved her, still longed for her voice, still crawled under the couch so she wouldn't have to see his body. But it didn't matter. To Greta, love had a boundary, and Gregor had crossed it. That's what makes this kind of betrayal so brutal. Not that someone hurts you, but that someone kind does, and they don't even know they're doing it. They walk away telling themselves it was the right thing, that they tried. They move on with a clean conscience, while you rot in the silence they left behind. Greta is not a villain. That's what's so chilling about her. She's the sister who tried, the daughter who stepped up, the girl who did more than anyone else, until she didn't. And you've seen this before. When your pain stopped being palatable, when your sadness became awkward, when your name on their phone felt heavy instead of welcome. At first they were there, they answered, they hugged you, they told you it would be okay. Then slowly, they weren't. Not because they hated you, but because you stopped being easy to love. They'll say, "I'm just setting boundaries." They'll say, "This isn't healthy for me." They'll say, "I can't be the only one trying." And maybe they're right, but it doesn't stop it from killing something inside you. That's what happened to Gregor. He didn't die from malnutrition. He didn't die from the infected apple stuck in his back. He died the moment Greta looked at him like a burden and not a brother. We think betrayal is sharp, sudden, but the worst kind is slow. It's kind, it's soft, and it makes you question whether it was ever love at all. Greta didn't become cruel, she just became tired, and that was enough to make her deadly, because the people who hurt us the most are usually the ones who meant well. Greta didn't stop loving Gregor because she wanted to. She stopped because the system around her demanded it. In the beginning, she resists. She steps into the role of caregiver while everyone else recoils. She brings food, she whispers comfort, she holds the family together by a thread. She does what society praises as compassion, and for that, we admire her. But compassion has a cost, and society never agreed to pay it. Soon, Greta's small acts of love begin to disrupt the family order. Her mother becomes more fragile, her father becomes more hostile. They start to look at Greta not as a daughter, but as an accomplice. And in a house where survival means control, compassion becomes dangerous. The system, the family unit, the social order, the unspoken rules, starts to close in. And Greta, like most of us, is taught the quiet lesson. It's okay to be kind, as long as it doesn't make anyone else uncomfortable. So she adapts, she hardens, she conforms, not because she's cruel, but because she was trained to think of cruelty as normal when it comes in the name of responsibility. She didn't murder Gregor, she just stopped loving him out loud, and in a world like Kafka's, that's all it takes. We like to believe that kindness is innate, that people are born good and remain good unless corrupted by some trauma or flaw. But what if that's a lie? What if kindness is just a script, downloaded, rewarded, and withdrawn based on how well it fits the surrounding structure? Society doesn't reward love. It rewards compliance, politeness, practicality, sanitation. Gregor became unsanitary, impractical, unemployable. And in a culture that equates value with usefulness, he stopped being a person and started being a problem. This is the most terrifying part. No one had to tell Greta to stop caring. She just knew. The air in the house changed. The tone at the dinner table shifted. Her father's eyes said it clearly. Enough. And so she did what the system had programmed her to do. She withdrew her love like a service being canceled, and she did it politely, calmly, without a single moment of rebellion. You've seen this happen too. Someone in your life starts struggling, mentally, physically, emotionally. And at first, people step up. They bring meals, they check in, they offer help. But then it drags on. Weeks turn into months. The conversations become awkward. The invitations stop. Suddenly, the struggling person isn't inspiring anymore. They're too much, too sad, too messy, too complicated. And society, gently but firmly, pushes them to the edge, not with malice, but with quiet exile. That's what happened to Gregor. He didn't commit any crime. He didn't hurt anyone. He just stopped being normal. And in a system that treats normalcy as a virtue and difference as a threat, even love must obey protocol. Greta didn't change on her own. The world changed around her, and she adapted. Because that's what good people do in Kafka's universe. Not because they want to hurt you, but because they want to survive. And the easiest way to survive is to stop caring, at the exact moment the system tells you to. Kindness is not immune to pressure. It bends, it folds, and if we're not careful, it disappears right when someone needs it most. We like to believe that good people are safe, that their intentions are enough to protect us, that if someone means well, they couldn't possibly hurt us. But that's not how the world works. And Kafka knew it. In the Metamorphosis, Greta never becomes a villain. She doesn't scream, hit, or betray for gain. She follows her conscience. She protects her family. She thinks she's doing the right thing. And that's the problem. She's not cruel. She's obedient. She's practical. And in a system that prioritizes order over love, obedience becomes indistinguishable from evil. There's a reason the most horrifying atrocities in history weren't committed by monsters. They were committed by ordinary people, teachers, nurses, accountants, who followed orders. People who believed in rules, in structure, in doing what's best. In 1961, psychologist Stanley Milgram conducted an experiment. Volunteers were told to deliver electric shocks to another person whenever they answered a question incorrectly. With each wrong answer, the voltage increased. Screams could be heard, begging, silence. But a man in a lab coat kept saying, "The experiment requires that you continue." And so they did. 65% of participants delivered the maximum shock, believing they had potentially killed someone, just because an authority figure told them to. They weren't sadists, they weren't criminals, they were good people, the kind you'd trust with your pets, the kind who hold the elevator for strangers, the kind who mean well. This is the lesson Kafka whispers through Greta. Goodness is not a shield, it's a mask, and under enough pressure it slips. Gregor didn't die because someone hated him. He died because the people around him still wanted to see themselves as good, and that self-image required cutting him off. Greta's final justification is telling. If that were Gregor, he would have known we couldn't live like this. She doesn't kill him because she stops loving him. She kills him because he no longer fits the story she needs to believe about herself. She had to erase him to preserve her own moral innocence. You've seen this happen in real life. Someone says they support you, accept you, love you, no matter what, until what actually happens. Until your pain gets messy, until your depression ruins dinner plans, until your grief makes the room uncomfortable, until your truth challenges their worldview. And suddenly, they're gone, not in rage, but in quiet distance. Telling themselves, I did what I could, I have to protect my energy. They're just not the same anymore. They leave you behind and sleep just fine because they need to see themselves as good. And if accepting your pain endangers that identity, they'll choose themselves every time. That's the myth of moral innocence, that being kind or sensitive or spiritual somehow makes you safe to others. But goodness, when untested, is just a performance. And when threatened, people will rewrite the story of their own righteousness, even if it means erasing you. Gregor's tragedy isn't just that he turned into a bug, it's that everyone around him still thought of themselves as decent human beings, even as they starved him, isolated him, and celebrated his death. No one said, "I'm the villain here," they just moved on. In Kafka's world, no one needs to be evil for something evil to happen. They just need to keep thinking they're good. Gregor didn't resist. He never tried to attack anyone. He never raised his voice. He didn't even leave the room unless he was starving for attention. He adjusted. He minimized himself. He tried to make it easier for everyone else. When Greta came in to clean, he hid under the couch so she wouldn't have to look at him. He curled his legs inward, pressed his body flat, waited in silence, just so she wouldn't be uncomfortable, because he still believed, deep down, that she would come back to him, that one day she'd look into his eyes and see her brother again, that this nightmare would pass and they'd find a way through it. He hoped, and that's what broke him. Hope is often framed as a virtue, a light in the darkness. But in Kafka's world, hope is a slow, agonizing death. It keeps you alive just long enough to feel every abandonment, every silence, every day you are not saved. Gregor doesn't die from the apple lodged in his back. He dies from the days that followed, the slow decay, the silent meals, the fading footsteps outside his door, and worst of all, the look on Greta's face when she finally stops pretending he's human. He doesn't scream, he doesn't fight, he doesn't curse her, he lets go. He stops eating, stops moving, stops hoping. Because what's the point of surviving when no one wants you to exist? That's the cruelty of hope. It doesn't just keep you waiting, it convinces you that the waiting means something. You say, if I'm patient, they'll come back. If I try harder, they'll understand. If I suffer silently, they'll see my worth. And they don't. They just grow more distant, more rational, more comfortable with your absence. This happens every day. Someone is falling apart. They shrink themselves to be less of a burden. They go quiet so no one feels guilty. They swallow their grief, their loneliness, their fear, because they believe that love is strong enough to notice, that someone will come knocking, that someone will say, "You matter, I'm here." But no one does, not because they're evil, but because they're busy, because it's awkward, because they don't know what to say, and because silence is easier to carry than empathy. Albert Camus wrote that the only real philosophical question is whether or not to kill yourself, because once you realize the universe doesn't care about your pain, you have to choose, keep hoping, or stop playing the game. Kafka doesn't give you an answer. He just shows you what it looks like to choose the latter. Gregor didn't rage against the world. He bowed out, quietly, without revenge, without a final word. He just disappeared. And the next morning, his family opened the door, saw his corpse, and felt relief. That's how hope ends in this story. Not in redemption, not in rescue, but in silence, and the sound of others moving on. In the end, Gregor wasn't killed by insects, or family, or even despair. He was killed by the belief that someone would come. So what do we do with this? How do you live in a world where the people who love you the most can be the ones who leave you behind? How do you trust again when the face of betrayal wears the mask of kindness? Gregor Samsa's story doesn't offer solutions, but it does leave scars that feel familiar. And if you felt even a fragment of what he did, then you already know these truths. Kindness has conditions. Most people will love you only as long as you're familiar, functional, and easy to love. When you break, some will stay, but many will quietly excuse themselves, not because they're cruel, but because they're normal. Watch how people treat what no longer serves them. This is the real test of character, not how they treat their friends, their equals, their partners, but how they treat the discarded, the sick, the strange, the broken, the Gregors. Being good doesn't mean being harmless. If you saw the video we did on Are We Inherently Evil, you'll remember the hard truth. Evil isn't always loud. Sometimes it smiles, sometimes it whispers, sometimes it believes it's doing the right thing. Greta didn't think she was cruel, and maybe that's what made her so dangerous. The question isn't just whether people are good or evil, it's whether they're awake, whether they're willing to stay human, even when the system tells them to look away. Because kindness without courage is just complicity wearing a clean shirt. If this made you feel something you didn't have words for, watch the next video. Are we inherently evil? It might not comfort you, but it will make you see clearly, and sometimes that's enough.